Dover Air Force Base. March 7, 2026. Six flag-draped transfer cases carried by soldiers in white gloves, a president saluting in silence. The first American war dead in a conflict that began 8 days ago. A conflict launched without a single vote in Congress, and Congress just voted to keep it that way. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what happened in both chambers this week, what the markets are already telling us that no politician will say out loud, and what every single one of these dominoes means for your gas tank, your mortgage, and your retirement account. Every fact sourced. Every number is verified. Let's go. If you want to understand the Iran war, the way no cable network will explain it, the money, the votes, the strategy, subscribe now because this story is moving by the hour. Let's rewind to February 28, 2026, because this did not start where most people think. That morning, the United States and Israel launched a joint military operation against Iran. 43 The initial wave of strikes killed Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, eliminating the country's highest political and religious authority. 43 The operation was dubbed Operation Epic Fury. 41 President Donald Trump and other U.S. officials offered various reasons for launching the war, including that it was to ward off an imminent Iranian threat, destroy Iran's missile and military capabilities, prevent Iran from ever having a nuclear weapon, and ultimately to achieve regime change. But here is what matters. 34 Senator Tim Kaine argued that even in a classified setting, the Trump administration could produce no evidence, none that the US was under an imminent threat of attack from Iran. Stop. Read that again. The co-sponsor of the War Powers Resolution, a member of both the Senate Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committees, says the administration presented zero evidence of an imminent threat, even behind closed doors. That is not a political talking point. That is a statement about what was, and was not, shown to the people constitutionally empowered to authorize war. 41. Iran rejected claims that it had been preparing an attack, and yet within hours of the first strikes the dynamic had already shifted beyond retrieval. 49. Iran's top national security official, Ali Larijani, vowed, "We will not negotiate with the United States," as the conflict intensified. 49. Iran escalated attacks on Israel and targets across the Middle East, with 6 U.S. service members killed. 49. 11 people were killed in Israel, and deaths were reported in the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Bahrain. By March 3, President Trump said the U.S. operation was expected to last 4 to 5 weeks, but could go far longer. 36 Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth then said the war could extend 8 weeks, twice as long as the president first estimated. That estimate set the stage for the most consequential congressional votes of the year. But here is what most coverage is missing. This was not the cause, it was a match. The fuel had been building for months. First, 41 The United States' withdrawal from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in 2018 led to the reimposition of sanctions on Iran and a turn towards the use of force rather than diplomacy. 41. The first Trump administration adopted a maximum pressure strategy. The Biden administration did not relax sanctions. The second Trump administration reimposed maximum pressure. Second, 41. The Defense Intelligence Agency concluded in 2025 it would be a decade before Iran could produce an arsenal of missiles capable of reaching the United States. And the 41 Department of Defense estimated Iran's nuclear program had been set back by 2 years, following earlier strikes on Iranian nuclear sites in June 2025. Third, according to the New York Times, President Trump's embrace of military action in Iran was spurred by an Israeli leader determined to end diplomatic negotiations. The Times also reported that 10 few of the president's advisors voiced opposition, so the intelligence said the threat was a decade away. The nuclear program had already been degraded, and the push came from an ally determined to close the diplomatic window. That is the full picture most people have never seen in one place. This is the kind of story that evolves overnight. If you want to be the person in the room who actually understands what is happening, hit subscribe right now. Now let's look at the receipts. We do evidence here at Daily Brief, not rage, not speculation. Evidence. Receipt number 1, the congressional votes. 37 on March 4, 2026, the Senate voted 47 to 53 to reject a war powers resolution that would have directed the removal of U.S. armed forces from hostilities against Iran, not authorized by Congress. 33 Democrats, along with Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, forced the vote over the opposition of most Republicans. 38 Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania was one of the few Democrats who voted against the resolution, calling it not necessary and really an empty gesture on Fox News. The very next day, the House voted 2122 to 219 to defeat its own war powers resolution, with 4 Democrats splitting from their party. 36 Representative Gregory Meeks, the top Democrat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, said, Donald Trump is not a king, and if he believes the war with Iran is in our national interest, then he must come to Congress and make the case. 39 Speaker Mike Johnson called the resolution a terrible, dangerous idea that would empower our enemies. What this means in plain English, the constitutional check on executive war power was put to a test. It failed. The president can now continue military operations in Iran without formal congressional authorization, with both chambers on record. Receipt number 2, the market shock. 24, on March 5, the Dow Jones Industrial Average declined 712 for 27 points, or 1.61%, to 47%, 954.74. The S&P 500 fell 0.56% to 6,833.71. The Nasdaq Composite dipped 0.26% to 22,719.9. 22 U.S. crude oil prices jumped 8.5% to just over $81 per barrel, posting their biggest single-day gain since May 2020. 22 Brent crude climbed 4.93% to $85.41 per barrel. By the end of the week, 25 Brent crude futures topped $90, and US WTI futures were closing in on that range, up more than 30% for the week. 27. According to Goldman Sachs head of oil research, Dan Strueven, the price level reveals exactly what traders are betting on: a disruption lasting about 4 weeks. 27. Without sustained supply disruptions, Goldman Sachs estimates the fair value for Brent crude to be around $65 per barrel. That means the market is carrying roughly a $13 per war premium right now. 24. The stock sell-off was led by Boeing, Caterpillar, and other names that stand to lose the most if the global economy slows. 24. United Airlines and Delta Airlines both fell more than 5%, the two worst performers on the S&P 500. 24. Southwest Air, American Airlines, and JetBlue Airways were all down more than 4%. On the other side of the ledger, 24. The SPDR S&P Oil and Gas ETF, ticker XRP, rose more than 2%, hitting its highest level since June 2022, led by gains in Chord Energy, Matador Resources, Phillips 66, Valero Energy, and Marathon Petroleum. 24. The XOP's year-to-date gains stood at nearly 30%. The scoreboard, oil and defense, up sharply. Airlines, industrials, and consumer discretionary crushed. The Dow in retreat. If your portfolio is built for peacetime, the market just repriced your risk. Receipt number 3, the polling. 6A CNN poll released March 2nd found that nearly 60% of those surveyed disapproved of the US taking military action in Iran. 6. A Fox News poll released March 4 found that 61% of voters disapproved of Trump's job on the economy. This is not a left-right divide. This is a broad public that did not ask for this war and is watching its cost climb in real time. Receipt number 4, the fractures inside MAGA. 46 conservative media host Megyn Kelly posted on social media on Friday, "I honestly can't believe we're doing this again," responding to reports about potential ground troops. 40 Congress member Marjorie Taylor Greene criticized Trump for betraying his America First campaign promises. 38 Representative Thomas Massie, a Republican and co-sponsor of the House War Powers Resolution, argued the conflict is not America First. When Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie are both publicly breaking with the president on the same issue in the same week, that is not noise. That is structural. Drop a comment below. Do you think Congress should have voted differently on the War Powers Resolution? I want to hear your take. Now let's talk about psychology. This is the part that almost never gets covered. Look at the two central figures driving this conflict forward. On one side, you have a president whose documented pattern of action across his first term and now well into his second is to move fast, absorb the shock, and dare his opponents to keep up. He pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal in 2018. He ordered the killing of Qasem Soleimani in January 2020. 41. That assassination made the conflict between the US and Iran direct for the first time. And now, on February 28, 2026, he launched a full-scale joint military campaign. Each escalation was bigger than the last. Each one was presented as a finished action before anyone could debate whether it should happen. This is a pattern of preemption. Move first, explain later, and redefine the argument while everyone else is still processing the news. On the other side, you have an Iranian regime that just lost its supreme leader, a figure who held power for 35 years. 44 Ali Larijani, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, and a longtime confidant of Khamenei, has emerged as one of Iran's most high-profile leaders. But he is leading from a fractured position. Iran's infrastructure is being degraded by the hour. One General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, told reporters that Iran's ballistic missile launches have plummeted by 86% and one-way attack drone launches are down 73%. And yet Larijani has publicly vowed no negotiations. This is the psychology of a cornered actor, one who has lost the capacity to strike decisively but refuses to signal surrender because the domestic audience is watching. Here is the tragedy. 41. The diplomatic framework, the JCPOA, existed. It was functioning as an arms control mechanism. It was imperfect, but it was a channel. That channel was closed in 2018. Every step since has been a step further from the table and closer to this moment. Think of it this way. One side plays poker, fast bets, big bluffs, and the belief that the other side will always fold. The other side plays chess, slow, positional, willing to sacrifice pieces to stay on the board. The problem is they are now playing the same game, and it is neither poker nor chess. It is a fire, and fires do not negotiate. Now let's bring this to your front door, because this is not happening in marble chambers. It is happening in your bank account, your dollar. 22. The US dollar strengthened against other major currencies this week, with the dollar index up 1.5%. That sounds good, but a strong dollar in wartime means American exports get more expensive abroad. And when oil is priced in dollars and rising, every country buying fuel is paying more and passing that cost through the supply chain back to goods you buy. Your coffee, your electronics, your next Amazon order, your investments. 29. Energy stocks like ExxonMobil and Chevron have risen with oil prices, while airlines, shipping companies, and energy-intensive manufacturers face margin compression. If you hold the S&P 500 broad index, you are riding two opposing forces at once, energy lifting and everything else dragging. 24. United Airlines (UA) and Delta Airlines (DAL) both fell more than 5% on March 5 alone. 24. Meanwhile, the XOP oil and gas ETF is up nearly 30% year to date. Your portfolio is being reshaped by this war whether you made a trade or not. Your mortgage. 29. If sustained high oil prices drive inflation back above target, the Fed may be forced to maintain higher interest rates for longer, pressuring growth stocks and leverage businesses. Higher rates mean higher treasury yields. Higher treasury yields mean higher mortgage rates. If you were waiting to buy a home or refinance, this war just made your timeline longer and your monthly payment higher. Not because of housing supply, but because of a conflict 6,000 miles away. Your job. 24. Being and Caterpillar led to sell-off companies that depend on global trade and emerging market demand. 20. The expansion of military conflicts in the Middle East has posed a new shock to the US economy, which was already struggling with tariffs, persistent inflation, and declining employment. If you work in manufacturing, logistics, aviation, or tourism, your industry is already absorbing this hit. 20. Airspace closures in the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and other Gulf states led to the grounding of thousands of flights. Your security. 20. The EU Defense Commissioner informed on March 6 that US military costs have overstretched, with a shortage of key missile stocks, affecting the ability to provide military aid to allied Gulf countries and impacting military aid to Ukraine. This is the hidden cost. Every interceptor fired at an Iranian missile over the Gulf is one fewer interceptor available for another theater. 20, the Trump administration declared that 3 months ago, the arms industry quadrupled weapons production to address projected shortages of defensive systems. But production takes time. Conflict does not wait. Now let's look forward. And I need you to stay with me because every scenario from here involves real choices with real consequences. Scenario 1, the escalation path. One General Kane said the US will begin striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory. Trump warned on March 7 that Iran would be hit very hard and that the US may expand its target list to new areas and groups of people. 41 Defense Secretary Hegseth has not ruled out sending American ground troops to Iran. 41 Trump said there are no time limits for how long the war will continue, and Hegseth stated that the war has only just begun. Meanwhile, 49 Iran's Larijani has vowed no negotiations. 49 Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon has fired missiles at Israel, which responded with its own strikes. The war is not contracting, it is spreading. Every new front, Lebanon, the Gulf states, the Strait of Hormuz, adds another variable that no single actor controls. 20 to the New York Times, the suspension of tanker traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil passes, and the diversion of about 200 ships have disrupted the supply chain. The spiral has no clean ending. It has only a flaw, and we do not yet know where it is. Scenario 2. The off-ramp. The CIA is already in discussions with Iranian Kurdish groups, including PJAK, about political proposals for if the regime collapses. PJAK Karimi told CNN the group is supportive of operations but has reinforced to the CIA that overthrowing the regime can't be done by military force alone. One PJAK has told the CIA it wants a political relationship with the US, including having a say in who would ultimately become Iran's next leader. The most realistic de-escalation mechanism is not a peace deal with the current Iranian leadership. Larijani has publicly closed that door. It is an internal transition accelerated by the collapse of Iranian command and control, mediated through back-channel contacts with opposition groups and facilitated by Gulf states who have their own urgent interest in ending the disruption to energy markets. Qatar has historically served as a mediator, but 41 reports indicate Qatar itself may have struck Iran after Iranian attacks near Doha's airport, though Qatar vigorously denied joining the campaign. If the mediators are being pulled into the conflict, the off-ramp gets narrower. What cannot be undone regardless of any deal, Khamenei is dead. The command structure is shattered. 6 American soldiers are gone. 36 more than 120 people in Iran have died. Oil markets have repriced global risk. Those facts exist now in the permanent record. My honest analytical reading, and I want to be clear this is analysis, not prophecy, is that the escalation path is more likely in the near term. The president has shown no interest in a negotiated outcome. Trump has said the only deal he would accept is unconditional surrender. The Iranian leadership has no incentive to surrender unconditionally, and Congress has now formally declined to intervene. The guardrails are down. New developments could change that calculus. A major American casualty event, a sharp enough economic downturn to threaten the midterm majority, or a credible internal Iranian transition. But as of today, March 8, 2026, no off-ramp is visible. Here is what I know with certainty. 1. The United States launched a war without a congressional declaration or authorization, and both chambers voted this week on March 4th and March 5th to let it continue. That is now a constitutional precedent, not a debate. 2. 21 global oil prices have surged more than 25% since the start of the war, with the national average gas price reaching $3.41 per gallon on March 8th, rising 0.43 in a single week. American households are already paying for this conflict every time they fill their tank. 3. 46. The war has divided Trump's MAGA base, with critics pointing out that he campaigned on the promise not to fight endless wars. The political coalition that brought this president to power is fracturing over the very thing he swore he would never do. 4. 1. When German Chancellor Friedrich Merz asked Trump directly how the war would end, the answer, according to a person familiar, wasn't quite clear. America's closest allies are asking the most basic strategic question: what is the end game? And they are not getting an answer. 5. 32 Six service members are dead. Their names are now carved into the story of this war. 44 Captain Cody A. Eco, Cook. Sergeant First Class Noah L. Tietjens. Sergeant First Class Nicole M. Amore. Sergeant Declan J. Cody. Cody Major Jeffrey O'Brien. Chief Warrant Officer 3 Robert M. Marsden. They were real people with real families who were alive 8 days ago. Come back to Dover. March 7, 2026. Those 6 transfer cases. The president standing on the tarmac. 45. In remarks to reporters on Air Force One following the transfer, Trump said, "It's a very sad day." But earlier that same day, he told the world Iran would be hit harder, deeper, in new areas. The image at Dover was solemn. The trajectory above it is escalation. Both are true at the same time. And that tension between mourning the cost and accelerating the cause is the story of this war right now. This did not happen because of a foreign invasion. It did not happen because of a surprise attack. 41. It happened through withdrawal from a nuclear agreement in 2018. It happened through years of maximum pressure. It happened through an Israeli leader determined to end diplomacy and an American president who chose to act. A series of decisions made by named people on specific dates that led to this tarmac. 3 questions I want you to sit with. First, historically, can you name a war launched without clear congressional authorization and without evidence of an imminent threat that ended in a stable, lasting outcome? What does history tell us about what happens next? Second, if the stated goal is regime change and the people on the ground in Iran are telling the CIA that bombardment alone will not achieve it, what is the moral framework for continuing an air campaign of this scale? Third, when you look at the next decade of your life, your savings, your home, your children's future, how much of it are you willing to have shaped by a war you did not vote for, fought in a country most Americans cannot find on a map? Answer below. I read every single comment. Everyone. If this is the kind of analysis you come to YouTube for, sourced, serious, no rage bait, no spin, then you are in the right place. Daily Brief exists for one reason: to give you the full picture that the algorithms and the cable panels will never deliver. Like this video, subscribe if you have not already, share it with one person who deserves to understand what is actually happening. The full picture is what we do here. Every time.